The silence in the grand conclave of the galactic consensus was not the silence of reverence, but of dread. It was the silence of 1,000 species holding their collective breath, watching the slow, agonizing death of a star. Not a supernova, not a cosmic cataclysm, but something far more insidious. On the central hollow projector, the vibrant, emerald swirl that had once been the thriving agricultural world of Xylos shimmered, flickered, and then simply vanished. Not exploded, not shattered, just gone from all charts, from all trade manifests, from all memory banks that weren't desperately clinging to the last, fading echoes of its existence. Prime Elder Thuron, his ancient, crystalline form usually radiating calm, now pulsed with a frantic internal light. "Another one," he rasped, his voice echoing unnaturally in the vast chamber. "Xylos. A Class A agricultural hub, billions of lives, trillions of credits in annual yield, and now nothing. The nullifiers strike again." Admiral V. Laura, the grizzled commander of the Consensus Defense Fleet, slammed a clawed fist onto the polished plasteel table. "We can't fight what isn't there. Our patrol routes show nothing. Our long-range sensors detect no energy signatures, no FTL wakes. One moment, a planet is a vibrant entry on the galactic ledger. The next, it's a blank space, an unrecoverable write-off." The threat had emerged 6 cycles ago, starting with minor, uncatalogued systems. Isolated mining outposts, forgotten research stations. The consensus, accustomed to millennia of peace and predictable threats, had dismissed them as rogue black holes or uncharted stellar phenomena. But then the disappearances escalated. Populated worlds. Then strategically vital resource planets. Each vanishing was accompanied by a ripple of economic panic, a sudden, inexplicable devaluation of entire sectors. The galactic economy, a vast, interconnected web of trade routes and credit flows, was seizing up. Assets were becoming liabilities overnight. Fear, a currency more potent than any credit chip, was devaluing the very fabric of their civilization. "Their method is not one of conquest, but of erasure," observed Ambassador Lyra of the Lumina Collective, her bioluminescent tendrils dimming with despair. "They are not conquering worlds, they are deleting them. From existence, yes, but more terrifyingly, from our collective consciousness, from the universal balance sheet. They are the ultimate economic disruptors." Thuron turned his gaze to a small, isolated section of the conclave, where a single, cloaked figure sat apart from the other delegations. "There is one among us who might understand this economic warfare, one who saw value where we saw none, one we banished for his unconventional foresight." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Everyone knew who he meant. Kalen, the disgraced data broker, the oracle of worthless assets. 2 cycles prior, Kalen had been a rising star in the hyperspeculative world of galactic data arbitrage. He'd built a formidable fortune by identifying and investing in the obscure, the unmapped, the seemingly insignificant informational signatures of forgotten systems. He claimed these latent assets held immense, untapped value, not in their physical resources, but in their unique informational footprint within the universal data stream. His theories were revolutionary, bordering on madness. He'd poured billions of credits, and convinced others to do the same, into what the consensus's established financial institutions deemed phantom investments. Then the nullifiers began their work. The first systems to vanish were precisely those Kalen had invested in. His latent assets became literal voids. His fortune, and that of his investors, evaporated overnight. He was accused of fraud, of manipulating the market with non-existent assets, of gross financial negligence. Exiled, disgraced, forgotten, until now. Bring him, Thuron commanded, his voice firm. We have exhausted all other options. If the nullifiers are attacking the galactic ledger, perhaps only a rogue accountant can save us. Kalen lived on a forgotten moon, a dusty, windswept rock orbiting a dying red dwarf. His home was a dilapidated data farm, its ancient processors humming a mournful tune as they chewed through endless streams of forgotten galactic data. He was a Xylosian, a species known for their meticulous record-keeping and their innate ability to perceive the subtle informational currents that flowed through the universe. He wore simple, patched robes, and his once vibrant, multifaceted eyes, usually sparkling with the thrill of a complex data puzzle, were now dulled by resignation. A faint hum disturbed the desolate quiet. A consensus diplomatic shuttle. Kalen felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in cycles, curiosity. They wouldn't be here for a social call. The shuttle landed, kicking up clouds of red dust. Prime Elder Thuron, accompanied by Admiral Velora and Ambassador Lyra, emerged. Kalen remained seated amidst his humming machines, a silent, unmoving sentinel of forgotten data. Kalen, Thuron began, his voice strained. We require your assistance. Kalen slowly turned his head, his dull eyes sweeping over them. Assistance. The consensus requires assistance from a disgraced data broker, from the man who lost billions on phantom investments. The man you exiled for gross financial negligence. His voice was a dry rasp devoid of emotion. You have come to the wrong place. My ledger is empty, my assets nullified. Velora stepped forward, her clawed hand resting on her holstered weapon. This is not a social visit, Kalen. Worlds are vanishing, our fleets are useless. We need answers. Answers? Kalen scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. I gave you answers, I showed you the patterns. I warned you about the latent value in the informational signatures of these worthless systems. I told you that the true wealth of the galaxy wasn't just in physical resources, but in the integrity of the universal data stream. You called me a madman, you called me a charlatan, you called me a financial terrorist. He gestured around his dusty data farm. This is the result of your wisdom. Ambassador Lyra, her tendrils pulsing with a soft, pleading light, approached him. We were wrong, Kalen, we admit it. The nullifiers, their attacks match your failed investments. They target the very systems you championed. You said they held latent value. What did you mean? Kalen's eyes finally showed a flicker of their old spark. Latent value isn't about credits or resources. It's about informational density. Every planet, every star, every asteroid has a unique informational signature, a digital fingerprint woven into the fabric of reality. The consensus only valued the big data trade routes, population centers, resource yields. I saw the value in the small data, the unique quantum fluctuations, the subtle gravitational anomalies, the echoes of ancient, forgotten histories. These were the true assets of the galactic ledger, the underlying code of existence. He stood, walking over to a dusty console. The nullifiers aren't just destroying planets, they're attacking the galactic ledger itself. They are systematically deleting these informational signatures, making the planets economically invisible before they physically remove them. They're not just conquering, they're committing informational genocide. And once an asset is deleted from the ledger, it's as if it never existed. Unrecoverable, unaccounted for, the ultimate write-off. Velora frowned. So their weapon is a financial attack. Precisely, Kalen said, a grim satisfaction in his voice. They devalue the asset to zero, make it worthless on paper, and then they erase it. My worthless investments. They were tracking the informational decay that preceded the physical nullification. I was watching the ledger being corrupted, but you dismissed my warnings as a bad investment strategy. Thuron's side, we need your help to understand this, to fight it. What do you propose? Kalen looked at them, a sardonic smile playing on his lips. You want me to fix the galactic ledger, the one you exiled me for trying to understand. The one you deemed too complex for my unconventional methods. He paused, then his eyes narrowed. I will help, but on my terms, and you will find my terms financially demanding. Kalen's terms were indeed demanding. He required unlimited access to the consensus's most secure data archives, unrestricted travel through all sectors, and a fully equipped, state-of-the-art mobile data processing unit. Most controversially, he demanded that a small, obscure human financial research group, Quantum Flux Investments, be brought in as his primary analytical partners. Humans, Admiral Velora scoffed when Kalen presented this demand. They are barely a century into FTL. Their financial models are rudimentary. They still use something called fiat currency and stock markets. Precisely, Kalen countered, a strange glint in his eyes. Their models are different. They haven't been indoctrinated by the consensus's rigid, outdated economic frameworks. They see value in unconventional data streams, in the noise that your systems filter out. When I was exiled, it was a small human firm that actually invested in my phantom assets, not for immediate profit, but for the data they generated. They understand the true currency of the universe. Information. Reluctantly, the consensus agreed. Within days, Kalen was aboard his new mobile data processing unit, a sleek, black vessel humming with processing power. Aboard were also representatives from Quantum Flux Investments. Dr. Aris Thorne, a human xenoeconomist with a perpetually curious gleam in his eyes, and his lead data analyst, Lena Petrova, a young woman whose fingers danced across holographic interfaces with impossible speed. So the oracle of worthless assets, Aris Thorne said, extending a hand to Kalen as they met in the ship's main data chamber. A pleasure to finally work with the legend. Your theories, while unorthodox, have always fascinated us. Kalen eyed the human's outstretched hand, a gesture of physical contact that was alien to his species. He gave a curt nod. The legends are often exaggerated. The losses, however, are quite real. Your firm lost a considerable sum on my initial investments. A calculated risk, Lena interjected, her eyes never leaving the data streams flowing across the main screen. We saw the informational patterns. The nullifier's attacks, while devastating, confirmed your hypothesis about the underlying informational signatures. They are not merely destroying planets. They are systematically deleting them from the universal data ledger. They are weaponizing economic invisibility. Kalen felt a surge of respect. These humans understood. Exactly. The consensus sees a planet as a physical asset. The nullifiers see it as an entry in a database. They are performing a zero-value deletion. Our task is to relist these assets, to restore their informational integrity, making them visible and vulnerable to conventional attack. But how do you relist a planet that has been erased? Velora asked, observing the session via comlink from the Eternal Vigilance. It's like trying to put a ghost back on the balance sheet. Every deletion leaves a trace, Kalen explained, pointing to a complex fractal pattern on his screen. A faint echo in the quantum substrate. My worthless investments were actually tracking these echoes. The nullifiers are incredibly efficient, but even they can't erase everything. There's always a residual informational signature, a digital ghost of the planet that once was. Aris Thorne nodded. And our human algorithms, developed for tracking highly volatile, unconventional market fluctuations, are uniquely suited to detect these ghosts. We call it informational archaeology. Lena's fingers flew across her console. We've identified a pattern. The nullifiers don't just erase. They repurpose the informational signature. They use the deleted data to create new, deceptive informational constructs, like phantom trade routes or false distress signals, to lure consensus ships into traps. It's a form of informational money laundering, turning a destroyed asset into a weaponized illusion. Kalen's multifaceted eyes widened slightly. Brilliant and terrifying, so the phantom investments weren't just worthless. They were tracking the theft of the informational asset. The nullifiers are not just destroyers, they are galactic asset strippers. Their plan began to take shape. Kalen would use his unique Xylosian perception and his vast, previously worthless data archives to pinpoint the faint informational echoes of nullified planets. Aris and Lena's human algorithms would then process this raw data, reconstructing the informational signatures and injecting them back into the galactic ledger, effectively relisting the planets. This would make them visible to consensus sensors, allowing Velora's fleet to engage the nullifiers. The true challenge, however, was the next target, the Centauri Nexus. A vital trade hub, a nexus of interstellar commerce, and the heart of the consensus's financial network. If the Centauri Nexus was nullified, the galactic economy would collapse entirely. And Kalen's data indicated it was next. We have approximately 48 hours until the nullifiers begin the final erasure sequence for Centauri Nexus, Lena announced, her voice tight with urgency. Their informational decay signature is accelerating. Then we have 48 hours to make a ghost visible, Kalen declared, his eyes now blazing with their old, sharp brilliance, and prove that some assets can never truly be written off. The Centauri Nexus pulsed on the main view screen, a glittering jewel of commerce and civilization. Below its orbital platforms, billions of lives flowed, a vibrant, intricate dance of trade and culture. Kalen felt a familiar ache in his chest. This was the kind of intricate, living data he had always sought to understand, to protect. Admiral Velora's fleet, battered but resolute, formed a defensive perimeter around the Nexus. Their sensors were on high alert, but still they saw no enemy. The nullifiers were ghosts, operating beneath the visible spectrum of galactic warfare. They're beginning the informational decay sequence, Lena announced, her fingers flying across her console. The Nexus's unique quantum signature is degrading. It's like watching a credit account slowly drain to zero, but on a planetary scale. Kalen was a blur of motion, his Xylosian senses overwhelmed by the torrent of data. He was sifting through billions of informational fragments, searching for the precise, relisting code, the counter-signature that would make the Nexus visible again. Aris Thorne worked beside him, his human algorithms parsing the chaos, identifying patterns that even Kalen's innate abilities struggled to grasp. We need to inject the counter-signature into their primary informational conduit, Kalen explained, pointing to a faint, shimmering thread of data that connected the nullifier's unseen presence to the Nexus. It's their payment gateway for the deletion. If we can flood it with the relisting code, it will force the Nexus back onto the galactic ledger. But that conduit is heavily encrypted, Lena counted, her brow furrowed. Their security protocols are designed to prevent any reversals of their deletions. It's like trying to deposit funds into a black hole. Then we find a backdoor, Kalen said, his eyes scanning the data stream. Every system has a vulnerability. Every financial transaction, no matter how secure, leaves a digital footprint. We just need to find the right one. Suddenly, a new series of alerts blared through the data chamber. "Unauthorized access detected," Lena shouted. "Someone is trying to hack our relisting process. It's a consensus signature." Kalen's head snapped up. "What, who?" "It's Admiral K-Thar," Aris Thorne said, his voice grim. "He's trying to nullify our efforts. He's injecting counter signatures, trying to keep the Nexus invisible." Velora's voice crackled over the comm. "K-Thar, the head of Consensus Logistics. Why would he do this?" "Because he's been compromised," Kalen snarled, a cold rage building in his chest. "The nullifiers aren't just erasing planets. They're buying influence. They're leveraging fear and greed." K-Thar was likely promised control over the new galactic economy once the old one collapsed. He's investing in the nullifiers market, betting on the collapse. The financial element, previously subtle, now exploded into the forefront. This wasn't just a military conflict, it was a hostile takeover, a galactic corporate raid. K-Thar was an insider trading the fate of worlds. "We need to cut him off," Lena cried, her fingers flying across her console. "His counter-signatures are disrupting our relisting process. We are losing time." "I can't directly sever his connection without alerting the nullifiers to our precise location," Kalen said, his mind racing. "It's too risky. We need a distraction. A massive, undeniable surge in the informational current that will overwhelm K-Thar's interference and momentarily blind the nullifiers." Aris Thorne's eyes lit up. "I have an idea. It's unconventional. But it might work. We flood the galactic ledger with a massive, unprecedented, worthless transaction. A noise signal so immense, so utterly devoid of actual value, that it creates a momentary informational black hole. It's like a financial flashbang." "What kind of transaction?" Velora asked, bewildered. "Every piece of data from every human cat video ever uploaded," Lena said, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "Billions of hours of pure, unadulterated, economically useless informational noise. It's the ultimate phantom asset. A transaction so absurdly large and meaningless, it will break their encryption for a microsecond." Kalen stared at her, then a slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Only humans would weaponize their own triviality." Lena initiated the cat video cascade. Billions of terabytes of feline antics, adorable mishaps, and questionable musical performances flooded the galactic informational conduits. The sheer, overwhelming volume of economically worthless data created a momentary surge. A chaotic informational storm that momentarily blinded K-Thar's interference and caused a ripple in the nullifier's otherwise seamless network. "Now," Kalen roared, his Zalosian eyes glowing with fierce determination. He slammed his hand onto the console, injecting the relisting code into the Centauri Nexus's primary informational conduit. On the main view screen, the Centauri Nexus flickered. Then, slowly, agonizingly, its emerald swirl began to solidify, its informational signature reasserting itself on the galactic ledger. It was a faint, shimmering outline at first, but it was there. Visible, accounted for. "It's working," Lena shouted, tears streaming down her face. "The Nexus is relisting, its value is returning." But the nullifiers were not idle. As the Nexus flickered back into existence, a massive, unseen force lashed out. The Phoenix Dawn shuddered violently. "They've detected us," Velora's voice crackled. "They're targeting your vessel." "Admiral, fire," Kalen commanded, his voice raw. "The Nexus is vulnerable. Hit them now." Velora's fleet, finally able to see their enemy, unleashed a devastating barrage of energy weapons. The battle for the Centauri Nexus had begun, not just on the physical plane, but on the very fabric of galactic information and economy. The battle for Centauri Nexus raged, a maelstrom of light and energy. The consensus fleet, finally able to engage a visible enemy, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. But the nullifiers were formidable, their ships appearing and disappearing with unnerving speed, their attacks aimed not just at physical destruction, but at disrupting the very targeting systems of the consensus vessels. Aboard the Phoenix Dawn, Kalen, Aris, and Lena worked in a frantic, synchronized dance, maintaining the Nexus's relisted informational signature, while simultaneously trying to predict the Nullifier's next moves. The Nullifiers, enraged by the unexpected resistance, were now actively trying to delist the Nexus, to force it back into economic invisibility. "They're pouring in delisting algorithms," Lena shouted, her face illuminated by the flashing alerts on her console. "It's like a massive denial-of-service attack on the galactic ledger. We are losing informational integrity." "We need to counter their delisting efforts," Kalen said, his multifaceted eyes darting across the data streams. "But we can't match their processing power. We need to find a weakness in their deletion protocol." Aris Thorn, his brow furrowed in intense concentration, suddenly slammed his hand on the console. "I've got it. Their deletion protocol isn't perfect. It's optimized for efficient erasure, not absolute erasure. There's a tiny, almost imperceptible informational ghost of their own previous deletions embedded in their current attack signature. It's a systemic flaw, a digital fingerprint of their past crimes." Kalen's eyes widened. "They're leaving a trail, a transaction history of their nullifications." "Exactly," Aris exclaimed. "Every time they nullify a planet, a tiny, residual informational echo of that act is imprinted on their own network. It's like a hidden ledger of their illicit activities. If we can amplify that echo, we can force their own system to relist their past deletions, creating a massive, unmanageable data backlog that will overload their network. It's a financial audit on a galactic scale." Lena cheered, her fingers already flying across her console. "We are going to make them account for every single one of their write-offs." The plan was audacious, risky, and utterly human in its unconventional brilliance. Kalen, using his Xylosian perception, would pinpoint the faint, almost imperceptible transaction history, echoes within the Nullifier's attack signature. Aris and Lena's algorithms would then amplify these echoes, creating a massive, self-replicating data loop that would force the Nullifier's system to reprocess every single planet they had ever nullified. As the battle raged outside, a new kind of warfare unfolded within the Phoenix Dawn. Kalen became a conduit, his mind a bridge between the physical and informational realms. He felt the faint whispers of vanished worlds, the digital ghosts of Xylos, of the mining outposts, of all the unrecoverable write-offs. He fed these echoes into Aris and Lena's systems, watching as the human algorithms amplified them, turning whispers into shouts, shadows into blinding light. On the main view screen, the Nullifier fleet, previously so coordinated and efficient, began to show signs of strain. Their ships flickered, their movements became erratic. Some vessels even seemed to turn on each other, their energy weapons lashing out at their own kind. "It's working," Lena cried, her voice hoarse with exertion. "The network is overloaded. They're trying to reprocess all their past deletions simultaneously. It's a recursive informational loop. They're drowning in their own data," Aris added, a triumphant grin on his face. "Their entire system is trying to reconcile a balance sheet that includes billions of deleted assets." Admiral Velora's voice, usually stoic, now held a note of awe. "The Nullifier fleet is breaking formation. Their shields are failing. What have you done?" "We've made them pay their debts, Admiral," Kalen roared, a primal exhilaration surging through him. "We've forced them to acknowledge every single asset they tried to write off." The Nullifier flagship, a massive, dark vessel that had previously been impervious to attack, began to glow with an internal, chaotic light. Its sleek hull rippled, then fractured. It wasn't an explosion, but an implosion, a collapse of its own informational integrity. The ship simply ceased to exist, not with a bang, but with a silent, terrifying informational shriek. As the Nullifier fleet disintegrated, the Centauri Nexus pulsed with renewed vigor, its emerald swirl burning brighter than ever. Its informational signature was fully restored, its value undeniable. The galactic ledger was balanced once more. The battle was over. The Nullifiers were defeated, not by brute force, but by a combination of unconventional thinking, informational warfare, and a deep understanding of the true nature of value. Kalen, the disgraced data broker, had saved the galaxy. Weeks later, the grand conclave of the Galactic Consensus was once again in session. But this time, the silence was one of profound respect, of dawning understanding. The central holoprojector displayed a vibrant, interconnected galaxy, its trade routes humming, its planets shining brightly on the universal ledger. Prime Elder Thuron, his crystalline form now radiating a calm, steady light, addressed the assembled species. "The Nullifiers are no more. Their network has been dismantled, their deletion protocol undone. And the galaxy has been saved not by our military might, but by the foresight of one we once exiled and the unconventional brilliance of a species we once quarantined." He turned to Kalen, who stood at the center of the chamber, no longer cloaked, his multifaceted eyes sparkling with a quiet triumph. Beside him stood Aris Thorn and Lena Petrova, the human xenoeconomists, their faces beaming with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. "Kalen," Thuron continued, his voice resonating with gratitude, "you saw value where we saw none. You understood the true nature of the Nullifier's attack, not as a military conquest, but as an assault on the very integrity of our existence, on the galactic ledger itself." "How did you know?" Kalen's gaze swept over the conclave, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. "Because I understand debt, Prime Elder, not just financial debt, but informational debt. Every action, every existence, creates an informational footprint. The Nullifiers tried to erase that debt, to make it disappear from the ledger. But the universe always demands its due. You can't simply write off existence without consequence." "And the humans," Ambassador Lyra added, her tendrils pulsing with admiration. "Their unconventional approach to data, their ability to perceive worthless information as a vital asset, it was instrumental. Humans have a unique relationship with information," Aris Thorn explained, a twinkle in his eye. "We've spent millennia creating, storing, and sharing vast amounts of economically useless data stories, art, music, even cat videos. We learned that sometimes, the most valuable information isn't the one that directly translates to credits, but the one that reveals the hidden patterns, the subtle connections, the underlying truth of a system." We learned to find value in the noise. Lena Petrova nodded, and we understand the concept of technical debt, the hidden costs of shortcuts and poor design. The nullifier's efficient erasure protocol was their technical debt. We just forced them to pay it all at once. The conclave erupted in murmurs of understanding. The concept of informational debt and technical debt on a galactic scale was a revolutionary idea, one that would forever change their understanding of economics and warfare. Admiral Laura stepped forward, her clawed hand resting on Kalen's shoulder. Your theories, Oracle, will now be the cornerstone of our new defense protocols. Our fleets will learn to fight not just what they see, but what they perceive in the informational currents. Kalen finally allowed himself a full, genuine smile. The galactic ledger needs to be rebalanced, Admiral. Not just militarily, but economically. We need to invest in informational integrity, in the small data that holds the universe together. We need to understand that true wealth isn't just about what you possess, but what you know. The consensus, humbled and enlightened, offered Kalen a position of unprecedented power. The newly created office of the Galactic Ledger Keeper, responsible for overseeing the informational integrity of the entire consensus economy. He accepted, but with one condition. My human partners, Kalen declared, gesturing to Aris and Lena. Quantum Flux Investments will be granted full access to all consensus data streams. Their unconventional methods will be vital in building a new, resilient galactic economy, one that values not just physical assets, but informational ones. And their cat video cascade will be enshrined in our military history as the ultimate financial weapon. Aris Thorne and Lena Petrova exchanged a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of humanity's unique contribution to galactic survival. The consensus, once rigid in its adherence to traditional economics, was now forced to embrace a new understanding of value, one where data, no matter how seemingly trivial, held the key to survival. As the conclave concluded, Kalen stood at the viewport, gazing out at the vast, star-studded expanse. The universe was still a dangerous place, but now it was also a place of infinite informational possibilities. And somewhere in the depths of the quantum substrate, the faint, residual echoes of nullified worlds hummed a silent testament to the power of a single, disgraced data broker, and the unexpected brilliance of a species that understood the true value of every single piece of information, no matter how small, no matter how seemingly worthless. The galactic ledger had been rebalanced, and the interest, for the first time in a long time, was finally accruing in their favor.